What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Friday, April 17th, 2020. Thank goodness it's Friday. Thank goodness it's Friday. Thank goodness it's Friday. And we have got a lot to talk about. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. That's 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room, twiddling the dials, keeping us out of trouble, and ready to answer the phone when you call on in. Put you on the air with your comments, questions, and opinions here. So let's get right on into it. Well, last night, Donald Trump unveiled his plan to reopen the states in phases, and he basically backed off this idea that he's got the authority to dictate to the states, and he's going to say it's up to the cities and the governors of the states to figure this out here. But it's a three-phase plan. Phase one includes much of the current lockdown measures, such as avoiding non-essential travel and not gathering in groups, but it says large venues like restaurants, places of worship, and sports venues can operate under strict physical distancing protocols. Now, they're going to wait 2 weeks, 14 days, and if there is no evidence of a resurgence of COVID-19, phase two allows non-essential travel to resume. The guidance says schools can reopen, bars can operate with diminished standing room occupancy. Then they're going to wait another 14 days. And if there is no resurgence of COVID-19, phase three will allow public interactions with physical distancing and the unrestricted staffing of work sites. Visits to care homes and hospitals will resume, and bars can resume their normal standing room capacity. So that's basically the plan. And some of the states are moving forward with phase one right now. Like I said, here in Indiana, we're scheduled next Monday. Just next Monday. Wow. Things start going back to normal. All right, we're going to go ahead and take a phone call now from Jim in New York. Hello, Jim. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, hi, Mike. I figured it out. This budget bill, the $2.2 trillion budget bill.
Yes.
If you divide that by 330 million Americans, it comes to $6,600 per every man, woman, and child in America. So we're getting a $1,200 check, which is nice, but we should be went directly to the people. Every person should be getting about $6,600. What do you think?
Well, it would be nice if that would happen, but unfortunately, most of that money is in fact going to large businesses and banks and, ordinary people. The attitude seems to be, they don't really need it anyway. In fact, Mnuchin is in trouble for coming out with this bizarre comment that the $1,200 check will last most Americans for 10 days. I'm sorry, for 10 weeks rather. And I mean, that's dumb. That's $120 a week. Who can live on that?
Yes. But if you gave it directly to the people, every person would get $660. If it was for the people and by the people. So I don't know why the government just didn't send everyone $6,000 check. For a family of three, it would be like $20,000. At some point, this has to be inflationary. I'm shocked that they've kept the lid on inflation so long. I've been worried about it for 10 years, and yet there's been some inflation. But this, at some point, really, the inflation has to kick in. What do you think?
Yeah, there's no question when you have that much money being put into circulation all at once, the inflationary pressures are going to be very, very high. What it's going to take to keep the inflation from running out of control is a cash sink, and that means rising prices.
Yes. One more thought I had. Now Fox News came out and said, China's behind the virus. And I think, is this the same Fox News that told us Saddam has WMDs.
Yes.
Same Fox News that said Assad gassed his own people twice, or the Saddam had got uranium from Niger. That Fox News.
Yes.
Can't believe people are still believing in this day and age what the television tells them. Now, I don't know what happened and where this virus has started, but all I know is we're supposed to believe these people. Fox. I mean, please. I mean, where have people been since 9/11? They forgot all that. Forgot about 19 Arabs did 9/11 with box cutters. So it just amazes me how people are all of a sudden supposed to believe everything the government says. It's like 9/11 because people are afraid it's coronavirus, and they should be. But it's cut off all critical thinking. What do you think?
I don't know how many people are believing what they see on the corporate media. I think they watch the corporate media because they don't really have any other sources of information. But I think I'm seeing a healthy dose of skepticism among people around here, at least. And they're watching it to basically find out, what is the government lying about today?
Yes. It's a shame we don't have a government that we can trust. But on that note, you have a great weekend, Mike, and take care.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And getting on back to the news here, Ilhan Omar, of course, is running for re-election. And apparently she's getting ready to pay her new husband's consulting company double what they paid last year. And it's led some commenters to point out that her campaign chest is looking more like a dowry. Anyway. All right. China has responded to claims by the United States that it is engaging in nuclear tests. And it says it's absolutely groundless. This came out here just a couple of days ago, where the U.S. said that China was testing nuclear weapons in defiance of the ban. China saying, no, we're not. And it does seem to be part of this continuing bash China, bash China, bash China that we've seen in the corporate media over the last several days. And again, what I think is going on here is there's a lot of anger building up in the American people over this whole, stay-at-home orders, social distancing, wear a mask, and basically authoritarian, abusive treatment by the government, supposedly for our own good. But a lot of people are saying, no, the numbers don't justify this kind of behavior. We didn't shut the entire country down for the When Pigs Fly flu in 2009, as bad as that one was supposed to have been. And of course, people are remembering in 2009 all the hype about how terrible it was going to be, and it turned out, no, it wasn't. And the same thing is happening again. The numbers aren't there. They just tore down that Army emergency hospital in Seattle, never saw a patient. They're getting ready to take those 2 Navy ships back to their home ports. One of them saw only 20 patients. All these hospitals that have been emptied out of elective surgeries and elective operations, treatments and consultations, they're having to let staff go. This flood of coronavirus patients that was supposed to completely swamp the system never happened. And so I think a lot of people are looking at this and saying, yeah, we're very angry. And I think all of this bash China, is an attempt to deflect that anger away from the government and toward a convenient enemy. All right, we're going to take another phone call. This one's from Joe in Tennessee. Hello, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. This virus whole issue's been with us for a while, and for the last 5 or 6 weeks, anybody who's kind of had their head in the game knows it was a bioweapon. You've been calling it a bioweapon. So
it's a very inefficient one.
Yeah, I think the last caller, Jim, I agree with a lot of what he says, but I didn't have to wait for Fox News to tell me that it was a Chinese creation that came out of the weapons lab in China. And I I think most people, most of your callers in particular, have known for a while. I just was wondering what took them so long, and I wish they would have announced that it was a bioweapon sooner. A lot of your callers and people call in. I've been very critical, and I'm very angry with China about this coronavirus for a lot of reasons. And it just seems like I'm sorry to all the people out there that want to blame America for everything, but it appears that it came out of China. Okay, the Wuhan weapons lab. It appears, and then they didn't tell the world for 7 days, and meanwhile they shut transportation down between their cities, but let all kinds of Chinese from Wuhan fly into Italy and everywhere else. So the Chinese have a lot to answer for. And
wait a minute, Joe. First of all, let's clarify a few things. The BSL-4 lab in Wuhan is a virology center. Okay, it's and they may be doing weapons research there, they may not, but they also do legitimate virus research. And apparently they were paid $3.7 million by the United States to research bat coronaviruses for some purpose. Now, if COVID-19 was a biological weapon, it's not a very good one, is it? It's not infecting a lot of people. It's not killing a lot of people. If anything, it's suitable for like annoying an enemy at best. So as a biological weapon, that's why when this first thing started happening, I said it was possibly a biological weapon that was in development, because it certainly wasn't ready to go when it escaped from the lab. But we have to go back and look at who was funding this research. And it turns out that was within the United States itself. So China was, like anything else. If you go over to China and you want an iPhone, they'll make the iPhone for you. You go over to China and say, explore these viruses for us, they'll explore the viruses for you. It was a business arrangement. But we have to go back and look at the motives of the people who funded this.
Well, they disabled an aircraft carrier with this virus, so it must be pretty good for a bioweapon. But
actually, the Navy disabled the aircraft carrier by ignoring Captain Crozier's concerns.
No, but I mean, it's effective in that it's causing people to die, and even young sailors, and it's causing, the shutdown of our entire, pretty much economy that we're going to have repercussions for a long time.
If the Navy had listened to Captain Crozier at the very start, that whole shutdown of the Roosevelt could have been avoided.
No, if the Navy would have not allowed Captain Crozier to take his ship into Vietnam, it probably wouldn't have had the outbreak to begin with. But that's I disagree. I think Captain Crozier was grandstanding, and it had already been all over his ship before the Navy could do it. There's other carriers that have it now, as a matter of fact, and Nimitz has got it also. Yep. And I don't think they did a port call in Vietnam. But this coronavirus, I think they should kind of change the name of it, because it's really a cosmopolitan virus. It's really having an effect. And this is what I find interesting, because I'm hearing from all these lefties like Alec Baldwin about how it's good for the environment. And I'm seeing Mayor Bill de Blasio say he's going to keep New York shut from till July or August. And I'm just curious when the lefties, the hipsters, are going to get fed up with their own leadership in destroying their way of life. I mean, could you imagine living in New York now and being told you're going to go to August now because of because of this coronavirus, and then having other ones brag about how it's good for the environment? Meanwhile, your life is ruined. You're sitting there without a job, with a city where you can't even go out and have a cup of coffee or go to a bar or do, if I was younger, I'd be infuriated. But, it's just kind of the way it's affecting, I think, cosmopolitan people more than it is rural people. And I think that it's different. The more difficulty, I mean, if you go to the theater and go out to restaurants, stuff that I very rarely do, but the people that live that kind of lifestyle, a social lifestyle, it's really tough. It's a tough one. And I'm just wondering, like, when they're going to start, getting upset about it. And I look at it, what I would be upset is two things. One, I think that they're shutting down everything, and just instead of being a focused shutdown and like shutting, having people in nursing homes obviously be careful, and having people, that are susceptible, and maybe shut the schools down. But to shut everything down, It's just overkill, and it's going to destroy our economy. And if that's what all the lefty, and in a way, I think it's Trump's playing it right, and that let these governors and mayors shut their their states down, and people will say, "Do I like it or not?" Now, maybe it'll work where they'll flatten the curve and less people will die, but I don't agree with that. We had a caller yesterday. He compared Sweden with Czechoslovakia and the death rate. You can't compare the two. I mean, Sweden's got Malmo, and it's got all those Arabs down there and Muslims, and they're living 10 to a room in these apartments. I don't know enough about the demographics of Czechoslovakia or the age, the average age of the Czechoslovakian population to compare it with Sweden. And the weather, there's a lot of other issues involved. I think that I think the herd mentality is the best. I think you protect the old people, but because all they're doing is delaying it. The delay, you lower the curve, but you extend the time that you have to stay locked down.
Yes.
So how long can we keep this country shut down? I mean, you can't. It's going to be the effects of keeping this country shut down they're going to be exponential as the time goes on. It's going to magnify the problem. And I think you're right. We've had a long bit of a spring break, but it's time to open the country back up, and especially in particular. I mean, I can see in areas, maybe New York stay another couple weeks or whatever, but even New Yorkers got it. New York's a great city, and it's going to be destroyed by this. You can't keep New York closed till August. It's crazy.
You're going to have protests. I mean, we're already seeing protests start all across the country, in various state capitals where people are just tired of being kept in their homes and told to stay away from each other and the rest of it. People are getting very restive right now.
And I hope when all is said and done with this, the blame really goes on globalism and internationalism. And I just hope people start looking with more of a jaundiced eye towards, if this whole, wide open, global world that we live in. I hope a lot of people start deciding to bring their businesses back to America. And I saw Trump honored truckers yesterday, and I thought that was a nice thing to do because truckers are the backbone of the nation right now.
Yes.
And, I just think that it's nice to see like blue collar people, given honor because it's very rare that they are, they always honor these demented celebrities and all these other people. And the guys that really are the heroes in this country, they get the short shift, So I was really happy to see that. But,
me too.
Otherwise, yeah, and I'm like I said, I mean, I'm not really anti-China. I kind of had a lot of good relationships with Chinese people in my travels and all that. But at the same time, we have to hold them responsible, and let's say for now we should really just have thorough investigations into everything. I won't condemn them. I won't expect to bomb them yet, but I want everything thoroughly, really investigated, and not like a 9/11 type investigation, but a real investigation, and then hold people accountable.
I want an investigation into just who signed that $3.7 million check to the Wuhan lab and exactly what they were expecting for that money, because that's really where the responsibility for this lies.
Yeah, and Bill Gates and all this. We have a whole establishment of a depopulation agenda, people, at the highest levels of our country in every different aspect of in the university system, in the media, in high tech. And I think it's time to really start going after these people because and find out the connections, because it's all interwoven. The Rockefeller Foundation, Bill Gates. Bill Gates goes back to Watson and IBM, and they're tie-in with Hitler. And it really is an ugly thread to start pulling, but it's something that we really should look into.
Okay, well, Joe, we're going to have to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials. But again, ultimately, it's who signed that $3.7 million check and what did they expect for the money. That is who's really to blame for all of this. We need to take a break. We'll be right back. And welcome back to our show here. And a reminder that Republic Broadcasting is in the middle of a fundraising drive. And the front site training promotion is back on again for a one-time $500 donation to Republic Broadcasting. You will get a lifetime Commander membership. learn how to use firearms effectively, and it's a really, really good deal. Meanwhile, if you can't afford that and you'd still like to help on out, the postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity, cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. The network thanks you. We're going to go back to the phones now to Dustin in New Jersey. Aloha, Dustin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Joe, come on. You're not going to bomb anybody over in China, okay? I mean, let's be realistic about this, okay? And second of all, that was that whole statement is bogus. That they didn't tell us. That came right out of the White House. Because remember when Trump says, "Well, they didn't tell us for a couple days or this or that." Well, there's reports now. They knew about this in November. Not only from the National Security Council memo, right? That they knew about this in November. But Mike, remember I told you that there was those in Italy. They had the pneumonia cases, and now that in Israel. Did you see that report from Israel, from the news, that they knew about this in November?
And they were informed by U.S. intelligence.
Exactly. So this whole they didn't tell us from 7 days is bogus. That's a bogus crap that's been put out there. And Mike, I don't listen to Rush Limbaugh. I was on the way home and I had him on yesterday, and you said it with Tom Cotton, the extremist. In our, I hate to say extreme right wing, but that pushing that whole, they did it on purpose. But did you hear Rush Limbaugh say that? You heard Tom Cotton say, right? I don't listen
to Rush Limbaugh anymore, but yeah, there's a lot of people out there saying this was a deliberate attack. Well, if it was a really failed one.
But to ruin their own economy, though, so they're going to not only ruin their own economy, but ruin all the business opportunities they're doing with the rest of the world. Like who? I want to ask Joe. Joe? China's got 85% of the manufacturing in the world. They're on top. Okay, who benefits from this? China don't, which means they wouldn't release a bioweapon that destroys their business opportunities. I'm sorry, but that's just not going to happen. And then, Mike, I don't know if I'm not a big fan of Michael Savage, but he came out. He was getting on Twitter and stuff, people saying, "Oh," because he says why would they do that? Why would Xi Jinping ruin his own economy? And people are going up against him, the diehard Trump people, unfortunately, saying, "What are you brought off by the Chinese?" Yeah, I see. I see, Mike. I see just a fracturing of people. There's no common sense. If you just think about it, why would China ruin their own economy? Why? It's just
absolutely.
They just wouldn't. And Mike, I don't know if you saw this. There's another report saying it might have not came from in Wuhan. It might have came from further south in China. So there's a lot of Mike. You notice there's a lot of doctors on TV. Fox News, they got their doctors. Everybody else got their doctors. You see it on YouTube too, right? I got my virologist. You got your virologist. They're all getting paid to go on TV and say maybe what that certain groups want to hear. Who's right and who's wrong. But Joe, you're wrong to say, well, let's just bomb China or this or that. I mean, I'm sorry, dude, but come on. And on global travel, dude, how did the Spanish flu start? Did they have globalism back then? I mean, you always had global travel in some form, right? You either had it through the boating, right? Ships going, back and forth or this or that, spreading diseases and stuff. So that's always been here. That's not really about globalism, bringing a virus. Now it could be worse because between 24 and 48 hours you can move it around the world quicker. But there's always been a global travel per se. Remember, was it the East Indian bringing spices back and forth? Right, you can bring viruses that way. Yeah. So I mean,
don't forget in 1918. In 1918, they were just wrapping up World War I, and the so-called Spanish flu. It was misnamed. I mean, they blamed Spain for it. Spain had nothing to do with it. It emerged at a U.S. military base, and soldiers who were being rotated in and out of other bases around the world carried it around the world, and that's why it became a global pandemic.
And it's probably worse now because we're, we weren't really an empire back then, right? We probably had empire ambitions, but now we're an empire, so we can spread that worse now than then. It's just, I don't know, people need to relax, not bombing anybody. And, I know you got other callers, Mike. I don't want to hang on, but have a good show.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to take another break for commercials. Back with more calls after these. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go right back to the telephones here, starting with Ron in the Bronx. Hello, Ron. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hey, Mike. Good to hear you and good to see you back, man. Really appreciate seeing you. Somebody has to remind Joe that, China's not Iraq. They'll bomb us back. Or, if you really want to get down to it, though, we just surrendered to goat herders in Afghanistan. So, what would happen if you bomb a formidable military such as China? I mean, it's just completely ridiculous. I just wanted to say that. Justin kind of stole my thunder on that one. But also, I'd like to touch on Corona here in New York City. It's very real. Like, I hear some people calling in thinking it's a hoax. It's very real. I mean, I know people are infected. I know people that died. So it's very real over here, Just wanted to make those points. Also, my buddy Mark, I know he's listening. I want to give a shout out to him. He has a pretty good YouTube channel. He uploads a lot of videos. He got some pretty good stuff on there.
Okay. Do you have the name of the channel?
Oh, what's Mark's channel? I think if you just look up, no, I don't have Mark's name on the channel.
Oh, okay.
I would have to figure it out. It's just Mark Shear.
Okay, well, people can look for it there. Do you have anything else for us, Ron?
No, that's it, Mike. Good to have you back. Thanks. Got a great show. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Paul in New Jersey. Hello, Paul. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hello, Michael. I think Senator Tom Cotton and Congressman Dan Crenshaw should go back to their political drawing boards, because the fact of the matter is, it's a really silly and dumb idea to try to pass legislation that will allow Americans to sue China for the damages because of coronavirus, for many reasons. Primarily because it sets a bad precedent. And what happens, Michael, if it turns out, after much research from independent researchers and scientists, that it came out of Fort Detrick, right? Who's going to be held liable then? So if then the world will want compensation from Americans and expect every American to pay if it came from the United States. Now, what happens if, go ahead.
Well, I mean, it sets a dangerous precedent, because you could have Iraq sue the United States for all the damage caused during the war. You could have Syria suing the United States. You could have Afghanistan suing the United States, suing the American people for all that's happened, especially because all of these wars were based on lies. In any event, it's probably not going to be enforceable. And the example I would like to use are all these court decisions in the U.S. courts that said Iran was responsible for 9/11 terror, and they were going to seize Iranian assets. But so far, no foreign governments have cooperated with that.
Right, now, what happens if something leaks out of one of the American-sponsored biolabs that are in Ukraine and Georgia, and infects those people and starts some new disease in those regions? Are we Americans going to stand right up and demand to pay reparations to those nations for hosting our bio research labs?
Probably not.
Yeah, and why just blame China for even the coronavirus? How maybe we can sue the airlines that brought it here. Or why not sue the president that dawdled and did nothing, or in attempting to force a quarantine? Why not sue them, right?
Yes.
If China if China is to blame for coronavirus, Mike, then can we sue Africa for AIDS?
Can we sue Africans for Ebola? Can we sue the descendants of slave traders because their ancestors brought over slaves spreading malaria? Will the Indians sue the white men for smallpox and the ravages of the diseases we brought over, like cholera? Can the British sue the Indians for cholera because it originated in India, right?
Yes.
Can we sue Mexico for Chagas disease? That's a relatively newly introduced disease. Came from Central America through migrants. Can we sue Central Americans for that? And if we can sue China for coronavirus, can I sue China for the invasive species we imported? I mean, not only did they send coronavirus here and didn't warn us about us, they sent stink bugs. Can I sue the shipping companies for the stink bugs I have to fight from getting into my house every year now that they're have been totally naturalized in the United States? And so these guys got to rethink what they're talking about, let alone that we should bomb,
nuclear power.
Yeah, right, the Wuhan markets, biolabs, because remember, I'm sure the Russians would love to bomb those American-sponsored biolabs in Ukraine and Georgia. So if we bomb those biolabs in Wuhan, that sets the establishment. I mean, that establishes a precedent, and that's why you just can't go there. It's just ridiculous. And so, and by the way, on the way out, I just want to say one thing. Michael Savage through Drudge today, there was an interview, and it's nice to know that Michael Savage is more in our camp concerning the coronavirus.
Yes.
Because he thinks it's very serious. Yeah, but his wife said she's very disgusted and ashamed, and I'm using that word ashamed again, like I did yesterday, that she's ashamed with the what's going on with the conservative movement because of so many of the denialists in the conservative movement who are, poo-pooing this whole thing, and as Rush Limbaugh saying it's nothing more than a type of cold and it's not a big deal. So even Michael Savage is in our camp, and this is a serious issue, but we'll get through it. Put your mask on, everybody, okay?
All right. Well, Paul, thank you for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Stuart in Florida. Hello, Stuart. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
How you doing, Mike?
Doing fine.
Yeah, good. Just on the last point, this is a hoax. I hate to tell Paul because the numbers aren't there. Okay, it's less severe than the flu from last year, and the so-called deaths from coronavirus are being heavily manipulated. Doctors can list it as a coronavirus, even if it's influenza or some other disease. So it's a hoax. Okay, you got it, Dustin. It's a hoax, but you can wear your mask if you want. Okay. Now, as far as China goes, and who's responsible? If anything, it's the United States that's more likely responsible. More of the evidence points to the United States, and in fact, there was a Taiwanese and Japanese virologist, who said as much. And here's some of the details. Last summer, there was an outbreak of corona-type virus around the Fort Detrick, Maryland site, to the point where it had to be closed down temporarily in August. Okay? Mm-hmm. Then you had so-called vaping illness, which was similar characteristics. Okay? That was around September or so, could have been August. And as was pointed out, we were funding the research in Wuhan. So, it looks like a nice little setup if you wanted to blame China. And then, of course, there was Event 201, which suggests that maybe there was foreknowledge of what was going on. Kind of like the drills that seem to go on a couple of weeks or a couple of months before a mass shooting event. Now, you may have seen also that Fauci, back in January of 2017, he was saying that, Trump is going to face a major outbreak of, I forget how he put it, but I believe he did use the word pandemic. Now, this was in 2017. And Fauci is connected with Gates and the whole,
Yes.
I think most people know what that's about. And the thing is this this works on a number of levels, all to the benefit of the people we don't like. The oligarchy helps set up a police state in this country. It helps generate animosity towards China. I know I should have wrote some of the other ones down, but those are two of the big ones. Now, one thing that's a little bit disturbing I heard today on Sean Hannity, and I don't know if they would try to do it. They would be cutting their own throats, I think, because nobody would want to invest in U.S. treasuries. But he's floating the idea that, well, China's responsible and we shouldn't pay our debt to them. Well, that would remove a lot of restraint on China from becoming a little more physical when we bully our way around the South China Sea. So that's pretty dangerous.
Yes,
and,
it is.
The final point I wanted to make, unrelated, is I saw today about how there were reports about a so-called, shadow government around Biden.
Yes.
And given the fact that Trump didn't clean up the electoral process, and they could use this coronavirus as a way to have mail-in votes, they could get rid of Trump and hit the ground running with their program with all their people in place. So anyway, that's all I wanted to
Yeah, but Obama tried that and it didn't work out very well.
Yeah. Well, how do you mean that?
Well, Obama had this shadow government that was formed, to try and derail Trump's campaign, and after Trump won the election in 2016, to try and find some way to eject him from office. That was a shadow government.
Oh yeah, but in this case, I was thinking more along the lines of kind of what you've mentioned often is, they're going to try to steal the election and get in that way as opposed from, do the whole process before or during the election instead of after the election.
Now, there's no question there's going to be a lot of election fraud this November.
Yeah. So, that was it. So, anyway, thank you, Michael. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Tom in Utah. Hello, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hi, Mike. I don't have quite the beautiful lobby as a lot of your people have, but I do have experience and knowledge. Just want to remind people that we are the great investors into the biological threats to our businesses that are settled right there in China. The greatest investor in Chinese labor is the U.S. pharmaceutical complex. They have more drugs produced in China and other products produced in China. In fact, I was involved with the particle board and the sheetrock that was coming out of China that was toxic with formaldehyde. I was on the phone all the time with John Huntsman, the ambassador, checking to see what things would interfere with the production. And possibly, of course, in medical production, you've got to worry about the contaminants. So there's a high interest in what's happening in that area. And we've done this all over in the world, in pathology, virology, bacteriology, biological issues. We have this love affair between military, industry, and pharmaceutical. And so that laboratory, I know, was an operation by the United States corporations so that they would be aware of the infections endemic to that area that might interfere with our production. We're the big buyers of their products, so we want to know what's at risk. It's like when we sent men down to build the Panama Canal. We were unaware of the problem with malaria. Men died. That was bad for business, bad for the investment. So the people in medicine or in pharmaceuticals, and I have a lot of men around me right here that are basically freaked out because their production is dead. They're in China. 2 months ago, they were bragging as we'd be sitting down as a little group about how well they were doing because they got that profit margin, because they were producing in China cheap and then selling high here. So we have an investment. We are the lab operators. In fact, many of those lab technicians were trained in America.
Yes.
So the previous two callers hit it right on the head. It's U.S. investments. It's the military, industrial, pharmaceutical complex that was operating that lab to make sure they knew what the risks were for our product and the producers of our product were in that area. And that's what I want to tell you. And I've had experience in that area too. I know what we're doing. Like I say, I was involved with the production of the materials for those FEMA trailers through John Huntsman over there. He and I were on Skype face to face many times. I said, we got to find out what's going to impair the production of our product. Well, that's the same thing with the pharmaceutical complex. They want to know. They don't want to have a Panama Canal event. So all over the world, we have labs, we have technicians, we have investigators. And it's just like when we are cooperating with Russia in the space station. You know, in science, there is no national borders. There is only the efforts or the common interest of each scientist, whether they are from Russia, Poland, India. I mean, we all get together. And it's like we don't have any national borders. All we're worried about is the project. And I can see what happened there. I had an experience when I was working my lab up here in Utah, where a student that I was working with happened to tip over a petri dish, and he and I both got splattered. And within 4 days, we were in hospital for 3 weeks. So I can see the possibility of a lab, accident.
Yes.
But blaming it on the Chinese is like blaming them on, the scapegoat. We're the ones that are investing into all of that biological investigation. And it's not warfare. We want to make sure we know what risks are presented to our production and the people who are in our production. And China is our warehouse. It is our manufacturing complex. I think, what's his name? Eisenhower would say, instead of saying beware of the military industrial complex, he would have expanded out military, industrial, medicinal or medical complex or pharmaceutical complex. And that's exactly what we were doing in Wuhan. Anyway, thanks, Mike. You do a good job.
All right. Thanks an awful lot here, Tom. We're going to let you go. We got to take another break for commercials. We got a few more callers waiting on the line. And of course, at the top of the hour, the lovely Lady Claire will be joining us for hour number 2. So stay tuned and we'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go right back to the phones and try and get to these phone calls before the top of the hour. Mark in North Carolina. Hello. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, Mike, what's going on? Say, sorry, I was doing something. I just heard, a couple of callers, including my good buddy there, Ron. Let me just give out my YouTube channel, okay? I gave it out before in this channel. I have gotten a few people from your fans. My name is Mark, M-A-R-K. Last name is S-C-H, 2 E's and an R. And you'll see that circle there with my picture and my ugly mug in there. I'm wearing a hat and sunglasses. All right? So that would be it. I've got quite a few. I've already got quite a few subscribers, more than I thought I would get. Anyway, listen. Anybody who thinks you're going to bomb China and get away with it, like Ron said, this is not Iraq. It's not Afghanistan. Okay, we're talking about a major superpower. Now, I don't believe that we could defeat China a one-on-one in a conventional war. Even our military is demoralized. The Chinese people don't understand. The Chinese are very proud people, very nationalistic, and they've built up that nation quite a bit. And remember, we couldn't defeat them back in the Korean War. That was how many years ago? And they were just getting started at that time, and they held us to a standstill. So anybody who thinks we're just going to go in there and do an Iraq type deal, And of course, Russia could very likely get involved, and it very likely would be the end of the planet by the time it's finished. And I don't blame China for this. Okay, I don't think they released a biological weapon on us. It makes no sense for them to destroy their own economy and kill their own people by dropping this bomb on themselves first, and then go, I think if it is a biological weapon, you want to bomb somebody, you want to send the B-52s over there, send them over to Fort Detrick, or maybe to Bill Gates' whatever, what is it, in Seattle, Microsoft, or Silicon Valley. Send the B-52s over there, because I think if it is a biological weapon, that's where it was created. Now, I'm kind of up in the air. I still think it may be a biological weapon, it may not be, but it wasn't done purposely by China. Why would they? It makes no sense.
No, it doesn't make any sense at all.
If they're going to unleash it on themselves, you know. What I like I said, these people who arrogantly think we can go to war with anybody we feel like, those days are over, folks. Those days are over. China is very much a superpower. Okay, they're a fully nuclear-equipped nation. They've got the ability to bomb us to smithereens, as we have, by the way, the ability to bomb them to smithereens. And again, there's always the chance Russia gets involved, and then, of course, probably Pakistan and India would start hurling bombs at each other. Israel would get involved somehow. Iran would get involved. There would probably be destruction of the world, of the planet. Okay? Well, at least we'd get rid of the coronavirus that way, because there'd be nobody to get it.
The virus would survive. Right? Anyway, Mark, I got to let you go. We're going to take a break for station identification, and we'll be back with hour number 2 after these few words. Welcome back to our show here, hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Actually, we're going to close the phone lines after these next 3 callers. So let's go to Al in Canada. Al, welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hi, Mike. Hi, Claire.
Hello.
I don't want to talk about pointing fingers. I was wondering if you, had if you had already talked about the CDC report that it came out, and that the Danish report about the mortality rates, who exactly this infection is, or this virus is affecting.
No, we didn't cover that. Why don't you give us a quick little rundown?
Well, according to the CDC, 90% of all the deaths, the people already had pre-existing conditions.
Yes.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think 58% of those people were over the age 65. So it's pretty much like any other illness. You know, it affects the elderly that already have pre-existing conditions, or anyone that has a pre-existing condition who's already more or less kind of circling the drain. You know, I don't mean to, sound morbid or anything, but I mean that's the way it is. And then the Danish report, from what's going on inside their country, their mortality rate is 0.16% from their reports.
Yes.
So, and then, of course, the Swedish people, Sweden never locked down. South Dakota isn't locked down. And, to use your words, Michigan has gone full tilt boogie. You can't even get seeds to grow your own food, apparently.
Yes.
So, there's more to this than meets the eye. I mean, all these countries that are locked down, I mean, our countries, your country, my country, all we're doing is going deeper and deeper into unpayable debt. So that seems to be the common theme, is this unpayable debt. So obviously, there's a connection there in that sense. The UK has on their books, I don't know whether you knew this or not, they have something called Ways and Means set up, where they can actually go to their central bank and borrow directly from it, which any country can do. But I don't think the G7 was set up to allow that sort of thing from happening. You had to go to private institutions in order to create the nation's currency. So, with that in mind, I mean, I'm not going to, like I said, I don't want to point fingers at, who did this and who did that, or, where this started. What we have to do is concentrate on, well, what are the effects of this, and what exactly is going to happen, in the next few weeks? I mean, how is this going to affect us in the future? Because the past doesn't matter anymore. It's already done. It's over. It's gone. What do you think?
I think that we have too little firm information and too many egos out there, trying to strut their stuff, like Michigan is a good example. Again, people are proceeding, making decisions without all the available facts. And the idea that Michigan is saying seeds are not essential, that shows a very bizarre train of thought here. Now, I'm hoping that this three-phase reopening plan is going to move forward, but apparently the Democrats are already attacking Trump on it and saying either he's too authoritarian or he's not doing enough. You know, it's a classic case. It doesn't matter what Trump does or does not do. The Democrats are not going to like it.
No, they're not. Anyway, I know you got another couple of phone calls, and honestly, I'd rather listen. I'd rather hear Claire's voice than mine, so I'll let you go.
Oh,
Thank
well,
you.
here, then I'm leaving. Okay.
No, you're not. No, here you are not.
Take it easy, Mike. Bye, Claire.
Thanks an
Bye.
awful lot. We're going to switch over to Mark in New York. Hello, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing? Hello, Claire. Good to talk to you again. I don't want to cut too much into your hour. You know, I have tons of questions about corporate structure, you know, corporate greed and crony capitalism, but I thought I'd wait a couple of weeks, let you talk and stuff. But I mean, I wanted to throw Ruth Bader Ginsburg at you and say, do you think her behavior is appropriate for a woman her age? Should we just allow these people? She's most likely bedridden. You know, who knows if she has, you know, the virus and stuff like that, whether it be reported. I mean, have you given it any thought? I don't mean to pop quiz you on it.
Well,
but,
you know, the obvious issue here is the Democrats are in a panic that especially if Trump wins re-election this November, he's going to get to load up that court with conservative justices. And the Democrats...
And which he should, because they did it to us. So how about that?
I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I think the reason she's staying on is to prevent Trump from being able to fill her seat. But I don't think she'll make it through a second Trump term.
They have a right to say it's their seat. Because 50 years, 60 years ago, there were no progressives in the Congress strong enough to take it. They were in the corporate world, according to Dinesh D'Souza. But do you think they have a right to say it's their seat, the way the media reports that it belongs to them, that that's really a progressive seat?
Well, I think it's sort of natural for them, after they've been appointed to the Supreme Court, to view that chair that they're sitting in as their seat on the bench.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think they should shorten the terms, limit the terms, because these antiquated things, you know, the 60s radicals, you know, maybe it's not so popular right now. It's changed. I don't think it's their seat. I think it's the American seat. And if the majority of Americans want them in there, you know what I mean.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
The idea is that the Supreme Court should be free from political influences. We know that's not true. We know that some of the justices got blackmailed back during Obamacare.
Yeah. Now, the idea, I wanted to call in just because you guys are touching on coronavirus. This word novel virus, for me, this is the second strike against China. I'm tired of them. I'm a real big Rivero fan. I'm a big Gordon Chang fan. And they're both saying that these guys are, you know, they're misbehaving. They already did this thing with the twin girls. And I don't know what happened to them. That doctor disappeared. Another doctor, poof.
He's in prison.
No, he's in prison.
Oh, all right.
Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Tossed him in the Hooskow.
They came out. Another thing is that they were trying to create a Superman type of situation where it wasn't really. It came out that they knew damn well that they were mucking about with the intelligence gene and stuff. I don't like that. You know, this CRISPR technology. I learned about it. It was discovered about on a NPR show on a Saturday night, as a matter of fact. But they said they were messing around with E. coli, and they found a virus, and they hijacked this assassin cell that messed around with the DNA. So now they were joking like maybe we can bring back the woolly mammoth or something, and mammoth that is. And I just think it's these guys are mucking about willy nilly, and they shouldn't be trusted. And I think we should pull back on everything. They steal a lot of things. The country. Well, I was looking at Sweden's. And I apologize to the Swedish listeners that it is a wonderful, unspoiled country with only 10 million people. That's about the size of the East Coast, stretched into as far as Tennessee, all the way down to Florida, up to Montreal or Maine. It's huge, with about the population of Long Island. And that's how they can get away with, a nice, easy kind of social. Everybody pays a little for the health and the and Social Security and stuff. Our country is too messed up, with too many hands in the in the cookie jar to be trusted with that much. On the average, it's 32% when you're making like 20,000. First 2,000 not taxed. And then over like 60, you pay another 20%. And I can see how that can work out for a population of 10,000. And a homogenous, other articles I've read saying they're mostly all Norwegian, Nordic, homogenous community. It's all the same people. It's not like here where we have all these people, all these illegals, all these different, everybody's divisive and it's all corrupt and it's all this cronyism going on. So, but anyway, it's a beautiful country with, kings and queens, royalty, and very spread out. And I can see how a mega mind globalist will say, okay, the gravy train is over for Sweden. Let's start mucking with it, messing it up, sending people in there because it's huge, absolutely huge, with a small amount of people. So I hope they can hold on to that because it's a great place. And that's all.
Okay,
That's all I want to say.
All right, Mark, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to take one more phone call before I turn the microphone over to Claire, and that's Jim in Montana. Hello, Jim. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. How are you?
Doing fine.
Good. All right. A lot of your listeners, they're a lot sharper and a lot brighter than I am, honestly, But, today, on this hour, on this minute, I think that I can get us reined in and focused in on the point a little bit here. China is a little bit to blame in the sense of that they're as responsible as the rest of the cabalist, deep state, bought and paid for saboteurs that are in our own government as well. Like Nancy Pelosi and the director of the CIA and the rest, and half of the other fake liberal deep cell operatives that are in Congress and half of the other fake deep cell Democrats that are in Congress. And at the very top of it all, and most of us already know this, but sometimes it helps to just have a refocus. None other the private central banking system. And
yes,
who is the lead architect? The lead architect of it all. The Rothschilds, who control, who pretty much own most of the private central banking network and control over 70% of the world's money flow. Okay? They at the very top. Okay?
yes.
So going and attacking China, the people of China, for the most part, they're in the same boat we are. They're innocent enough. It's the upper levels of the Chinese government, just like with our government. They're all in the same cabalist club, all receiving their orders from the Rothschilds. Maybe not directly from the Rothschilds, from private central banking system. Because as we all know, all wars, all destruction, all of that are bankers' wars, bankers' destruction. For many other reasons, but the main one, like the couple callers ago said, keep us in debt.
Yes.
Because that's how they make their money.
That's how they keep control.
And we were yes, sir. Yes, sir. In America, boy, you know, we were starting to thrive. We were starting to come back to our feet, you know. And I think I heard rumors, I'm not sure for sure, that Trump was actually maybe talking about nationalizing the bank system. Hallelujah, if he would do that. That's you know, that would do a lot of damage if we nationalized our banking system and got it out of private hands. Well,
I agree.
Hitler, terrible guy. Horrible guy, Hitler. Okay? Yeah. Okay? But when he nationalized his banking system for his country, holy cow. Those guys soared. That country just took off.
They called it the German miracle.
Yes, sir. Time Magazine Man of the Year. Okay, yeah. I'm not supporting Hitler in any kind of way, of course. You know, okay, but that, let's not forget, my friends. And I love all my information warriors, all of us. We're all in this together. I love all you guys. You know, Paul too. You know, all you guys. You know, Paul's not necessarily, you know, completely wrong. You know, there are levels in that Chinese government that were just, you know, part of the Kabbalists that are in on it. And those, you know, as far as the COVID-19 goes, you know, one of your, you know, first like 3 or 4 callers, gentleman from New York, and he said he knew a couple people that had passed away in the situation. Man, my heart goes out to you, man. I love you, brother. You know, and if I would tear the flesh from my own body if it could help those people that you knew, you know, or in any kind of way, you know.
All right. Well, Jim.
But the thing is, sir,
sum up.
Though, okay. The thing is, though, is that we don't know. I'm sorry. We don't know what they died for, what they died from. All we know, and I'm sorry, man, but all we know is that they died and that they were tested with a complete, phony, worthless, mock COVID-19 test. A test that tests for genetic materials that all of us produce. Okay? So all we know is that we don't know. Because these people all being tested with a test that is, it's garbage. You might as well just throw that test in the garbage. You know, the only purpose, if you come really down to the logic of it, base and common sense base of it, the only purpose I could find for those tests is just to make it look like everybody that's sick and dies, everybody that's sick and everybody that's dying has COVID-19. You know, until they actually come up with a test that tests for the viral genetic material, those tests are, they're more good for.
No, they're a little better than tossing a coin. There are so many false positives and false negatives. Anyway, Jim, we're going to let you go here. I gave you a big chunk of time here. All right, so thank you very much. We're going to close the phone lines now, and we're going to go with the Lady Claire here, and we've got about 2 minutes before the next commercial break, so you can tease into what you want to talk about.
Well, I will in a second, but Mike, you and I have been discussing how this pandemic has been bringing out some of the best and some of the worst in humankind. And I wanted to give a shout out to one of the members of Saturday Night Live, Michael Shea. What this guy did to honor a grandmother who died of COVID-19, he paid the rent for all the other people who live in the particular apartment complex where she had lived. And I thought, what a beautiful way to honor someone you loved. She must have been extraordinary in this guy's life. Now, his politics and my politics, zip codes apart, okay? Opposite ends of the universe, but that's okay. But he did something really kind and positive to people who may have needed that greatly. And also regarding the medical community and pharmaceutical community, I have a story that I'm going to share probably in one of the later segments because we have a little bit more time. But I would also like to mention that this is the year when the national debt for this country is going to exceed the GDP.
The gross domestic product.
Gross domestic,
Okay.
yeah. And folks, if you have not thought about prepping, maybe now would be a great time. And I've got a few things to say on the other side of the break that I think may be very useful. It was coming up very soon.
Yes, as a matter of fact, it's coming up here in about 8 seconds.
Yes.
And we're going to take a
We're
break
ready
for
for
some
it.
commercials, and then we'll be back with the lovely Lady Claire after these words from our sponsors. Welcome back to the show here, and I'm going to turn the microphone over to the lovely Lady Claire, who's got an issue to raise, which is probably of interest to a great many of you.
I think I'm going to take that into the next segment, but I wanted to go back to prepping.
Okay.
Prepping is not one thing. It's got to become a lifestyle. And I suddenly remembered that it is actually part of their religious ethos for the Mormons
Yes.
to prep. And they've been doing it for hundreds and hundreds of years, ever since that first religion came about in the United States.
They're very good at it.
And they're very good at it. And they've got a ton of information online that is very clear, very well put out. They talk about canning. They talk about preserving stuff and how you do it. And they take you through a step by step. And if you want to, just what I did was I typed in my search engine, Mormon food prepping, and it came back with a ton of information. All of it good, all of it logical. And I know for some people it may sound like overwhelming, but guys, just a little at a time.
Yes.
And these Mormon guides that are online are fabulous. And they give you a practical blow by blow, if you will, description. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And you're also going to want to find where you can get the best deals on stuff your family eats. If it's stuff your family doesn't eat, don't go there. You know. And it was funny during this last supply chain management fiasco, which we've all been experiencing. If you go to a regular supermarket or you go to a big box, supply chains have been a problem in this country. And I don't know that they're going to get better soon. So please, get yourself started. Don't let yourself feel overwhelmed because, again, as I said on last Friday's show, the people who were causing physical bodily harm to other shoppers over things like toilet paper, those weren't the preppers. Preppers were laughing certain portions of their anatomy when they saw these things.
Yes.
So, yeah, please remember. And there is another lady whose name I recommend very highly. Her name is Daisy Luther. She has written extensively on this situation, and she's good at giving people, again, simple, cogent advice that's very easy to read and figure out. I can do that. She is someone who I know has appeared on Mike's show and was just a joy to have when she did.
Mm-hmm.
And what she has to say makes absolute, total, and complete sense. So, if you want to Google some of the stuff that's out there and print it out, or maybe get on her mailing list, I believe she still has one, or buy a book, because what you will get is going to be so helpful. I don't know if it's still on the Learning Channel, but there was a show a little while back called Extreme Couponing. Now, that means you're going to have to knuckle down, probably look at the online sales, and also you might need to actually physically get a paper and look for the...
What's a paper?
I know, what's a paper? But more likely they will have these deals online as well. And so if it's something the family uses a lot of, get it on sale. Use your timing wisely to be able to know what you're going to need. And reconfigure a space. And I know a lot of our listeners live in smaller spaces these days. They live in smaller apartments because they need to be close to work. And you have to figure out how you're going to use your space to the best possible advantage. Now, where we live right now, we've got a garage. We haven't had that luxury other places.
No, this is the first
Yeah.
place I've ever lived that had a
Yeah,
garage.
Yeah, and we're going to have to do some cleaning out and some shelves and whatever, but if you've got the space for it,
Yes.
you can plan a lot better. You can keep a lot more with you, and it's going to be good. It's going to be wonderful. I am hoping that we're not going to have another emergency like this in the near future. But guys, look through history. Crud happens. And I don't think I'm being alarmist to say that, but yeah, crud happens. And we always have to try to be as prepared as we can be, particularly if we've got people counting on us, like older family members.
Yes.
Or kids. Mom, I'm still hungry. There wasn't enough in my lunch today. No mom or dad in their right mind wants to hear that. So think about it. Plan your work and
Yes.
work your plan, please. And do it right now while we still have some stuff on the shelves. I mean, our local big box was almost out of bathroom tissue. But I've kind of learned, Mike, to do one thing at a time. And if you're building a little stockpile, it's not going to kill you. Ultimately, if there is a crisis or shortage, you're going to get through it because you've got all the tools. You've got
And
all
you
the
want to
bells and
rotate through
whistles.
your food supplies
Yeah.
so you don't have it sitting out there until it goes past the X day.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have to take another break for commercials here. And when we come on back, Claire has an interesting story to share with you. So we'll be back after these few words. And welcome back to our show here. And finally, Lady Claire, take it away.
I will. This is a very real story. It happened to us this morning. And I wanted to share it with you. There is a phrase from the Latin, caveat emptor, buyer beware. And one of the places you really have to look at that these days is with prices for pharmaceuticals. Now, we have kind of a neighborhood pharmacy, and it's not like 5 minutes away from the home, but it's the closest of what it is.
Yes.
Okay. And there has been a medication I've been prescribed by my doctor who is absolutely great. And now I turn 71 next month, but sometimes age brings issues. Brittle bones, osteoporosis, osteoarthritis, this kind of stuff. Now, I was supposed to get a 3-month supply when I came to pick up Mike and my medication. And what I discovered, now this medication is called Risedronate sodium, easy for me to say, at this pharmacy. And they were about to hand me 3 boxes. It's a total of 12 pills. And the price that they gave me on these pills had me absolutely sputtering. Guys, $276 for 12 pills once a week. And those of you in the audience, our listeners and our viewers, know this, okay? Well, I finally got my lower jaw up off the floor because that's how much it threw me. It had been 180, which I thought, what is the reason? It's not like they're mining this stuff. It's not titanium.
Just it had gone up $80 just since the last time
in
she'd
90
refilled
days.
it. Yes.
Yeah. And so I thought, I'm not going to get mad. I'm going to get even. So I took 1 box, and that was over $100. And I started doing some research, and what I found was that there is a big box store. I'm not going to name the store. Do your due diligence. And if you are a member and you have pharmacy privileges, the 90-day supply at this big box store was going to cost me about $29. Let me say that again. $29, which is a saving from the pharmacy company of $247 for a 90-day supply.
I think we're justified in naming the pharmacy in the big box store.
You think so?
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
The pharmacy was CVS.
CVS Caremark. So what I have done, what I'm going to be doing, I'm sending 2 letters, one to the entire management team of CVS Caremark and one to my family physician and letting her know. Now, I'm going to be sending this certified with a return receipt. I don't even know if I'm going to get a receipt back, but I think people need to know that we, the consumers, know this. I really do. And we're lucky. We're not in a situation in this little family of two where we, have to choose between food and desperately needed medication. And guys, this medication is great because what it prevents is bone loss and bone breakage. And there apparently, in going to my bone guy last week, he said, Claire, a lot of it has to do with heritage. I'm Northern European. A lot of people who are not Northern European don't get this stuff happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't wish it on anyone I didn't like. But when your pharmacy brings up a price in like 90 days, I asked them, and I had a smile on my face, and I know it's not the fault of the pharmacy people over there. They're very nice, and they're very efficient in what they do. And I said, I know it's not your fault, but I am guessing if Costco is able to make a profit at $29 for 90 days, this medication is not that expensive.
No, it isn't. Most aren't. The markups are just obscene here.
Yeah.
And when we were on Oahu, we noticed the same thing with Sam's Club.
Oh, yeah.
That it was a lot cheaper to get our prescription medications there than at the CVS that we had down there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you really do need to shop around. You need to take advantage of all these little apps there, the Prescription RX, or what's the one that Martin Good RX, and the one that Martin Sheen is pitching right now.
Yeah.
Because you can be taken for quite a ride here. And unfortunately, when you get to the AGE, where you are being given a lot of prescriptions, I take my morning pills, with a ladle, well, there we are. And
yeah. But extension of life and having quality of life remain in your life. And if you do need these medications when you get older, which obviously I do, I think it is grossly unfair for those companies that are marking up for their retirement parachutes, or I don't know how much these people at CVS make on the executive team.
Well, now we know how CVS is able to go on out and buy up all the small mom and pop drugstores. Because remember, ours was a save-on before CVS came in.
Yeah.
It just came on in and just gobbled it up, and the prices on everything went through the roof.
Yeah. And so I'm saying to anyone who is my age or maybe a little older on
even younger,
who is taking some of these medications, please shop around. We're going to go down tomorrow, and we are going to become
Costco members.
Costco people.
Yep.
And I'm going to talk with a pharmacist over there, and I'm going to say, we live where we are, and you're up here. And it is
a bit of a drive, unfortunately.
It's a bit of a drive, but you know something? Even with the gas, it's an incredible bargain, and that membership is going to pay for itself. They have tiered memberships from 60 to 120, and some of the tiered memberships will allow you cash back on things like travel. It's not bad.
Okay.
Yeah. And there is another situation I want us to look at. Mike, did you cover the fact that the U.S.-backed rebels in Syria have pretty much defected now to the Syrian army?
We covered that one yesterday, We spent all of your tax money went to train, arm, and equip these so-called Syrian-friendly rebels, and now they've basically deserted, and they've joined Assad.
Yeah, and not only that, but they told the Assad military people that they had been trained to blow up Syrian oil wells.
Yes.
Guys, I would like to think of a time in my life when the U.S. was not committing war crimes. And,
well, it seems like they've been doing it all along.
Yeah. When was there a time in this country when the U.S. was not committing war crimes all over the world, Mike?
Not when we've been alive.
No.
When we've been alive for a while.
Yeah. And I must tell you, in my case, my wake-up call, Vietnam. I don't know about you.
Yes, that was my wake-up call.
And it was, what are we doing? Do these people not have a right to govern their country in the way that they want?
No, they've got to run their country the way we, the United States, wants. That's manifest destiny.
And the thing I can't understand also about it, we are now trading with Vietnam, but we're
Yes.
not trading with Cuba. What's going on there?
Well, the United States knows how to keep a grudge, and they've been keeping a grudge against Cuba ever since the Bay of Pigs.
Yeah, it seems to me absolutely ridiculous. And I wish we had more trade. I wish we had more trade in terms of, in terms of student exchanges. I think that would be very educational for both us and for people from other countries. More cooperation, more trade, not more sanctions. Oh, speaking of sanctions, we have just dumped another set on Venezuela. And Pompeo is saying to the Venezuelan government, if there is a transitional government, you don't have a right to resist. Well, the people in this country take their history, they know their history, and they take it very seriously. And my concern is that if we do try to go in with this transitional government, Mike, the Venezuelan people are going to resist, they're going to protest. This is going to be our next Afghanistan. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I would like, I'd like your thoughts on that.
Well, again, the United States is going on in. They want to control Venezuela. They want to control Venezuela's oil.
Yeah.
They want to control what currency it's being sold for around the world.
Yeah.
This is the same reason we went into Iraq. It's the same reason we went into Libya.
Yep.
And it's just more U.S. foreign intervention and adventurism.
Uh-huh.
But we're not doing very well. I mean,
Nope.
we're getting, our box cleaned by a bunch of goat herders in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
We have not exactly won in Syria.
No.
Iraq wants us to leave.
And Mike, I think there's a point here that I think we need to make. Who won the war in Iraq? Was it the U.S.? Or, I'd like a drum roll, please. Okay. Actually, China has won that.
Yes.
And they are going to start developing oil in Iraq. Oil for development. Now, the U.S. is not terribly happy about that, but what are they going to do? Go to war against China? I think one of our earlier callers said that would be a really horrific call to make.
It would be a bad thing.
Yeah, we can't outproduce them on the weapons. They still can script. So if we're behind the eight ball, if you will, technologically, and in terms of a troop strength that can compete, I don't know what the odds are in terms of the U.S. bringing back the draft, but I think we are not that far away from it. I wonder what the odds makers in Vegas are saying.
I don't know, but I do know that if they bring back the draft in this country, there will be a negative reaction because I think the American people are sick and tired of war. We actually have a caller waiting on the line right now, Glenn in Philadelphia. Hello, Glenn. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Mike. Hello, Claire.
Hello.
I was listening to what you were saying about the prescription pricing, and the pharmacies also fill veterinary prescriptions and stuff. And I was, as you often say, gobsmacked when my pharmacy wanted to charge me $42 for 11 terbutaline tablets for my asthmatic cat.
Okay.
And it turns out, and now on Newsmax TV, you often see advertisements for the service called Good RX.
Yes.
They have a phone app, and that's the thing. And what that shops, that comparison contrast shops medications for you so you can pick the cheapest place to go.
Yes.
And when I objected at the CVS counter getting my this terbutaline, the woman at the counter was able to tap away on the keyboard for a few minutes and pull up a good RX price for me that was $11 cheaper.
Yeah.
So even the pharmacies themselves can sometimes pull this stuff up.
Well, there was no interest in that this morning.
No. And we had seen CVS use Good RX once before on one of our other prescriptions, but on this one, the price was definitely firm.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And this medication I'm using for my cat is ancient and dirt cheap. I mean, it's a bronchodilator, for God's sake. It's nothing.
Yeah. I hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the same thing with this medication, which is now, it's generic. It's not even proprietary anymore.
Yes.
It's been around for a while and it does a good job. And I do want my doctor, and I do want all the senior management team at CVS to know that I know. You know, I think it's important. And my only conjecture is very probably there is some collusion with some of these people whose names I'm not going to name on radio, but they'll be getting the letter.
Yes.
That there has been a collusion to price fix. When, again, it's not like you're mining for something somewhere exotic, and those mines are going to dry up at some point in time, as they will with Tanzanite, because there is only a specific place in Tanzania where you can get this stuff.
Yes.
But we need awareness out there, and I don't want any American to have to choose between a meal and their meds. That's, you know, and you could say that, well, you were not bright enough, you were not intelligent enough to make sure that these contingencies were taken care of. No, the compassionate part of me, and I said, I'm very much a capitalist. We have to find ways that people don't have to choose in this country for whatever reason. At least that's
right.
my...
And the answer isn't necessarily, and the answer doesn't have to be communism either, or single payer. Because then you just have a different tyrant running things.
Yes, no, I hear you absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
The markup on or retail, you know, a cup of retail coffee from a convenience store used to be around like 400%. And imagine what the markup is on bottled water, where the water per gallon is more expensive than the gasoline you put in your car. And those things seem like highway robbery. But when you look at I would love to know a cost, you know, a cost analysis, what it costs the manufacturers to make these pharmaceuticals. I'm sure we're well above 400% on the markups that we're seeing. So.
Oh, it must be, because look, at Costco, if they can sell this drug at $29 and make a bit of a profit, hello, what does it have to be manufactured for?
You know, they might even be loss leading to get people to come into their stores, which fine if that's what they want to do. But I mean, the idea is we basically get the medicine for what? Close to 10% of what, you know, CVS wanted to charge you.
Yeah. You know,
the $5 roasted chicken is the chief loss leader.
Okay, I think you're probably right on that for when you just don't have any patience to cook.
Yes.
Yeah, I love to cook because I know what went into the food that we were eating, and you know what I wish people would pay more attention to is some slow cooking.
Yes.
Because slow cooking can give you tender results.
From very inexpensive cuts of meat.
Yeah. You don't have to have a steak. Look, for example, at cordon. Well, I'm thinking of beef bourguignon. That, you know, you don't have to have either expensive wine to cook it with. You don't have to have an expensive cut of beef. And at the end of the day, look how brilliant that tastes when it's done right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and there's a handy tip for when we end up in the zombie land scenario.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Oh, man. Yeah.
Yes, you know, slow cook the zombies.
No. No.
Exactly. No. All right. Thank you, Claire. Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you for sharing your story. I think that's important. This really is.
All right. Listen, we're going to start with Brian in Pennsylvania, but Brian, we're coming up on a commercial break, and I'm going to have to take you through it, but you can go ahead and start. What do you want to talk about?
Mike, can you hear me okay?
I hear you fine. You're on the air.
I just want to apologize to Claire. I called in, I think about 2 weeks ago on a Friday, and I didn't realize that the show was as far along as it was, and I kind of cut Claire off, I think, a little bit. So I want to apologize to her to start with.
No worries.
All right. Well, listen, stay on the line. Yes. Stay on the line. We got to do a commercial break, and then we'll come back to your phone call after these few words. And welcome back to our show. Last segment of our program on this Powhana Friday. We're talking with Brian in Pennsylvania, and Brian, just take it away.
Can you hear me okay, Mike?
Yes, you're on the air.
Okay. My thing I wanted to comment that I don't really hear too many people talking about is the mental health side of this pandemic and how being labeled as non-essential.
Yes.
To me, that sounds a lot like back in Nazi Germany where it was called a useless eater. And I just see that similarity, and I don't like that at all.
Yeah.
And,
that was George Bush who said useless eater, and I think in Nazi Germany it was Untermenschen, the underhuman.
Yeah.
Yeah. it was I listened to an audiobook of the White Rose and something else. I can't remember. There was a second part to it, but it was a really good book. It was like, because it was a story about a little girl who was like basically going to kill herself, and she found an American soldier that parachuted in. And it was a really fantastic book. I wish it was the White Rose and something else. I just can't remember what the name of the other thing is. But they talked about how the little girl's brother was like mentally handicapped, and they got rid of him basically. And I know that I know America would never go that far, but like I forget one of the people that I listened to was talking about how suicide hotlines, their numbers have been like exploding, and like people calling in and people that have been sober for like decades, and all of a sudden now they have nothing to do and they're falling back into alcoholism and domestic violence and everything, and everybody's like gleefully like, yay, lock the system down, lock it down. It's like, well, what happens when all these people like people that feel like they're no longer important? What if they all start killing themselves? Like, is that going to be classified as a coronavirus death, or are we going to take the mental health aspect?
At this point, they've decided Jeffrey Epstein died of coronavirus.
There you go. It seems like everybody's too gleefully wanting the system to just shut down. And like me, I love working. Like, that's like my favorite thing in life is to go to work. Like, if I could work 90 hours a week, I'd work 90 hours a week. And now that like I have a part-time job as a donation delivery person for a thrift store, but I own a small landscaping business, and over the summer I walk, like I actually walk about 20 miles a day.
That's good.
Just mowing grass, because I actually am also a disabled vet, and the doctors don't believe me, but walking, I have no pain when I walk. But standing still and sitting, I actually get massive pain because everything just locks up.
Yeah.
I actually don't mow with a zero turn or anything like that. I actually just have a little 30-inch mower, and every yard, no matter how big it is, I mow with a walk behind. And some of my yards are an acre and a half. Wow.
But you're returning to the earth. You're making the earth happy, and that's I can't imagine that I can imagine that would make you feel good.
Yeah, I love mowing grass. I love working. And yeah, take it easy, Mike. You have a great weekend. You too, Claire.
Thank you.
All right, thanks an awful lot. Stay tuned for John Stedmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please spread the word of RBN. Please spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. We need your help. Don't forget the front site promotional. Lifetime Commander membership for a $500 donation. By the way, Sheriff Mack is going to be on with John Stedmiller immediately following this program. We'll be back on Monday. Have a good weekend.